Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us on another episode of today's Electrical Estimating. I'm your co-host, Chris Traumer, and as always, I'm joined by my other co-host, Sal Huerta.
Hello, everyone.
Sal, the conversation we have today, at least the beginning parts of it, sort of echo conversations we've had with other owner-operators or estimators in the past, where they have mentioned, and this is new to me because, as you said, I've mentioned in the past, I'm new to this space, but they've mentioned that they really take time to look at the risk of a job first and sort of foremost before really diving into the profitability. And I know Mark's going to mention here that it's a fair balance between the risk and the profitability. But it seems like with our last conversations and this one, risk plays a lot bigger factor than just saying, I'm going to make $5,000 on this job. That risk is playing a huge role for what they're looking at when considering bids.
That's a very interesting point because most people would assume that, hey, if you have a high profitable type of job, that's what's most important. But like you're talking about, the risk is just as equally because if you win a job and all the numbers are off, it's not going to be a job that's actually going to benefit you at all. I think our guest Mark even mentions, the lowest bidder doesn't equal success.
Mhm.
So yes, the risk part of this is something that has to be looked at equally to make sure that the job is even worth taking.
And thinking about that, Mark goes into a little bit more of the value, sort of to the point you just mentioned, the value they provide outside just the lowest price, but their expertise and their prefab work and all this other services or value added services that they bring to the table. That made me sort of think back to when we were talking with Matt Firestone on how smaller electrical contractors moving into a space should really be looking at a niche, because going into that niche can help lower the risk because you know that space so very well that you understand all the risk that comes with it. And you can sort of mitigate some of that risk because you're so well versed in what could come up or what could happen, that by having that niche of, say, working in, let's just say, hospitals, what all the hospital grade stuff has to be, the code compliances, what needs to be done here, that you could sort of mitigate the risk of a company that may not be so familiar with it, that may be bumping up against things they didn't see coming. So it seems like if you're a smaller guy moving into this, or a company wanting to expand, that moving in into a niche sets you up to help mitigate some of that risk from the starting point.
It does, but it also, when you're moving in, like you said, the next step or bigger jobs or something like that, that you have to look at the overall job. And one of the things that Mark also brings out here is that the biggest issue when it comes to risk for him is the labor. So even though you're taking on a bigger job or we're moving out of your comfort zone to something else, you have to look at the labor force that equals that for you. Because again, you could win the job and not have the qualified people, like you said in your example of a hospital, or hospital, electricians who are used to working in that environment. Then, again, you could win the job and yet lose it and lose because again, your labor force isn't where it needs to be.
And that alludes to something that Barney even talked about way back when, where he goes after certain jobs and he knows that his guys have done this job so many times that his guys can walk in there and do an install in half the time other companies can, because they've done so many of these, that he's actually able to sort of play with his labor rate by bringing it down, because he knows his guys can install it so much faster and that they're not going to bump into any issues where they're going to have to stop and go, okay, what do we do now? Because they know what to do. So he's able to actually become more competitive because his guys have done this job so often that it's mitigating risk. It's letting him come in at a lower bid, and it's helping him to win more jobs at the end.
Exactly. And like you talked about, from the tech side, it's also the estimate side. Doing the same thing the right way every single time allows you to start mitigating that risk, knowing that you're expecting the outcome of what the jobs you've done in the past. I mean, same like you said with the labor force, they know what they're doing. They can do it quicker, faster, better.
Yeah, because Nick brought that up when we talked with him, the estimator from that large contractor out west. They have 16 different divisions. Each of them are working within a particular niche. So those estimators, they know their niche. They know exactly what's going to need to be put where, and they could add additional value to for the company to their customers because they can walk in and say, "Hey, listen, I know the plans say this, but the last 10 of these that we've done, this is the issue we've run into doing this, and this is how we can fix it." And I think Mark alludes to some of that here as being that insightful person that can help add value to the customer and come up with those pre-construction, excuse me, pre-construction ideas of ways for them to save money before they even have the bid to go, "Hey, listen, we've done this before. What you have here is great, but it's really not going to work the best. But if we reconfigure it this way, this is how it's going to work, and we can back that up."
So you can see how all the different parts of the crew, again, from estimating the office to the project managers to the the techs out in the field, all working together with each other allows them to look at the overall scope of the job, and then, like you said, make those recommendations of where things can be done quicker, better, faster, and then the other parts of it where again their expertise and then their knowledge stands out and makes them unique in that sense.
All right, so well, let's take this into the episode. Let everybody hear from Mark firsthand. Hopefully, they can pull some value from it. If you're listening, first time listener, please subscribe. We'll be kicking out more episodes every Friday. So, as always, Sal, great speaking with you. Catch up with you next week.
Good enough. What are the primary factors causing your bids to lose out? And how can you address these to improve your success rate?
We've developed a procedure over time. So we take the same approach to pretty much every estimate. We expect the estimator to provide a complete comprehensive estimate on the job that we give them. And then the estimating and division managers, myself, my partner Carl, and whichever division we have to be working with, will go in and adjust the estimate for past costs, project logistics, exactly what type of project it is. So from our perspective and from my perspective, being a low bidder is not always success. Anybody can be low bidder, and all it takes is to miss a few things. We've found over the years that we're awarded projects based on company strength and a record of success. So we work a lot off our reputation. And not to say that at the end of the day you don't want to be competitive, but my job is to protect the company. So therefore, our estimates have to be solid from top to bottom.
If you are losing out on a bid, sometimes it's for the best. You're putting your best foot forward. You're putting your most solid bid out there. And if you lose it, then hey, if we won it and we are any lower, then it probably would have been best for the company. Is that sort of how you're looking at it?
It is. I think our review process brings us to a point where we believe that we understand what our cost is, right? And we understand our cost, and we understand for us to do a job of X size, we need to have X return. So if you get to the point where you're negotiating with someone and the numbers just drop below a certain level, you have to walk away. So we have to have a walk away number on every large job.
So you mentioned walking away from the bid. Is that something that you guys exercise regularly, or is it something that it's comes up a few times a year or a few times a month, or is there a regular pattern to it, do you feel?
It depends on the market, right? New
Okay.
York has become very competitive, so that tends to happen more often than not. We're working in other parts of the country now. We're in Arizona and Rhode Island, upstate New York, where it doesn't happen as much because when you're a strong company and you can present yourself with lending a benefit to the client, that gets you more work at the end of the day. But the New York market is very, very tough right now.
And I'm guessing over time you sort of have created this formula to know where that line is for you guys. So you take a lot of different I don't want to say ingredients, but sort of different ingredients of X, Y, Z, and came up with this formula to say, hey, this is the number we're going to be at, and anything below this number is going to be sort of our walk away point.
Yeah, I think, we look at all parts of the job, right? You look at large material purchases. You could actually go out and have a handshake with a switchgear manufacturer before you close the job. Then we take a hard look at our labor units. our manpower loading, what foreman is available. So we have to look at where our risks are, right?
Mhm.
From where I sit, our risk is almost always labor, right? That is the biggest risk on any job that you take. And if we have the right team, the right engineering team, the right project management team, we'll actually take a job with less return on it, knowing that we're going to at the very least make this, and hopefully we can push it to a little higher number.
Now, this question is going to be off the cuff, but you just mentioned something that came to mind when we were speaking with somebody else, and it was risk. Do you sometimes look at these bids that you're doing instead of in profitability to the less amount of risk that you're going to have? Or is it a fine line between the two of them of where's our profitability and how much risk are we putting into it?
Well, I think it has to be both, but
Okay.
the risk reward level, right? So if you're going to take a job with a higher risk, you're certainly going to want a higher markup on it, so there is a reward for it at the end of the job. But if you know your risk going in, you try to mitigate that. I mean, we'll have line items in our final review. These are our risk points, whether it's the logistics of the job or whether it's the location of the job, and how do we manage that? But I think at the end of the day, everyone sitting in the review has to be comfortable with the risk level based on the reward for the job.
What practical steps are you taking, or can you take, or can our listeners take to sort of differentiate their bids and yours to increase your chance of winning more lucrative contracts moving forwards?
Okay, so we have Katie Nielsen is our director of development in the company, and she's out every day meeting with our clients and also looking for new clients, right? So we're developing our relationships, current and future clients going forward. Uh, we try to spend the time to educate our clients on our capabilities, whether it's a project management group that's done that type of job, or our engineering group, which we do all our in-house Revit and BIM is all done here, so we can help them with a design build project. Financial strength, celebrating 125 years in the business, and it's a company that started as a small family business. It's still a family business. It's just not small anymore. So, showing someone your financial strength and your bonding capability is a way to endear yourself to a client, knowing that their job's going to get done. Again, I mentioned project teams before, but I can walk into any meeting for any job and show them a team that's done that before, because there's very little that we haven't done. And then we like to highlight our engineering and our prefabrication capabilities. We've got a 15,000 square foot prefab shop in the Bronx, which is about 7 or 8 miles north of where I'm sitting. And we bring clients into that, and our prefab group walks them through how the prefab process works and how much of their job is going to get built elsewhere and then just shipped to the job and installed. Anytime you can keep tools off a job and reduce the number of men on a job, it's going to be a huge benefit to the client. So those are the basic steps that we take to make sure everyone knows who we are and what we can do.
It seems like when you're doing the estimate, the number that you're providing them, hey, we can do this at this number, core works hand in hand with, hey, this is our capabilities as well. And this is our history, and this is our skill set, and this is our team. It seems like it's not just that you're throwing out the lowest bid possible, or, maybe the middle of the road bid and just, hoping that they're going to come with you, but you actually walk in here with so many different services and assets and team members and knowledge and skill set that amplifies your company beyond just a good number that you're putting out there for them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that the owner of the company preaches is safety. So every meeting we start at EJ with a safety message. So when you walk through the process of what our safety record is, why we want to send our people home safe every day, when you talk about a prefab job, when you're doing so much work off site, you find ways to make people safer. If you have a safe job and a more efficient job, people have to really respect that.